In this class we're going to consider measuring business performance. So matching opportunities and appropriate strategic competencies is the passport to success. Looking at opportunities and looking at what the business can do best. It's strategic competencies, what it can do best. Matching those two is the way to succeed. Good management will follow the competencies and strategies to ensure a good outcome. So good management must be aware of what the business can do best and attempt to match what it can do best with the requirements of the market. And that's the recipe for success. Management rely on good and accurate information to monitor and measure performance. There are three important measures of performance. The first one is economy, which is economics. The next is efficiency, which really could also be treated as economics. And the third one is effectiveness, which, surprise, surprise, could also be treated as economics. However, the first one suggests economics more directly. The first one is economy, and this is one of the important measures of performance. So let's look at economy. It refers to minimizing costs and maximizing margins. Well, that might be a little extreme. What it may be interested in doing is reducing costs and increasing margins. Minimizing and maximizing are strong words and have got mathematical undertones. However, if we stick with the language for the moment, an effort to reduce costs and maximize margins will result or could result in lower prices or a higher margin. The business has an option. It may reduce the prices because it's more efficient, or it could simply take a higher profit margin because it has reduced costs. At the same price it have higher margins. Now there are two advantages of cost efficiency. Customers may be price conscious. The managers must balance quality and price. So customers may be price conscious, but it doesn't mean that cutting price is necessarily a good thing. It may brand the market as a cheap product and hence undesirable, not fashionable. So there are marketing implications for the pricing strategy. Competitive pressure in the marketplace may require the business to cut costs and reduce price. Generally speaking, businesses do not operate in isolation. Many businesses have competitors. Most businesses have competitors. And even if there are not competitors right now, there are potential competitors that need to be taken into account. Now the sources of cost efficiency, well, the supply costs, these are certainly a factor in determining costs. They impact on the organization's overall cost position. Location influences supply costs. Where the business is located. Do the raw materials have to come from the other side of the world, or what's the communication systems? Can it be delivered easily by rail, or does it require specialist transport to bring it there? So the location is an aspect of supply cost, as is the relationship with suppliers. Suppliers may see the business as unreliable or not necessarily a good payer, and therefore it has a bad relationship, and its supplies to the business may be coloured by the way it sees the business. And sometimes organisations act as intermediaries. They buy the product to sell on to other companies, a bit like wholesaling at the retail end. Sometimes companies buy in raw materials and hold raw materials and sell them on. They become brokers in the materials. Another part of the cost efficiency point is the product and process design. The capacity, and is the capacity full? Is the business working at full capacity? If it is, there is no scope for cost reductions. It can't make efficiencies. It can't develop more efficient ways because the business is already running at capacity. So it may not have the space available to buy in new equipment. It may not have the facility to expand the business in a more efficient way. Labour productivity may be at maximum as well. So the opportunity to make further economies in labour and labour productivity may be restricted. And working capital, as I said, might be fully utilised, in which case there is little cost savings that can be made. It can't bring in unused spare capacity because perhaps there isn't any. And the distribution and after sales, the value chain idea, well, there might be some capacity for some savings in terms of distribution or warehousing. There may be some, but it needs to be looked at, and areas where there is efficiency need to be identified. The experience of the business, well, provides competitive advantage as the amount of experience gained by an organization contributes to its effective unit cost. The more experienced the business is, the more efficient it can become. It is aware of efficiencies, it's aware of quick ways of doing the task. It has knowledge by learning by doing. An organization has the ability to be effective over time as they learn to be more efficient when undertaking activities. They have the ability to develop core competencies. They learn by doing. The experience of the business is important. And the last point which came up on the screen there is the economies of scale. And economies of scale is very important. This is an important source of cost advantage, particularly within the manufacturing organizations. Economies of scale occurs when cost per unit reduces as output increases. In other words, as the business grows, the average cost of production falls. Now, that's known as an economy of scale. Let's look at economies of scale in more detail. It is an important topic. First of all, an organization can offer its customers value for money by providing lower costs, therefore increasing its share of the market and gaining competitive advantage. So a business that is expanding, increasing its share of the market and gaining competitive advantage will also perhaps experience lower costs. Now, it may experience lower costs for a variety of reasons. A business can decide to maintain its current prices on products and accept a higher profit margin if its costs are falling. Or it may be that it wishes to cut the price and further expand the market and perhaps cut out competitors. Take an example of economies of scale. Let's say we have production and two possibilities. We produce 300 items or 600 items. Let's say the cost of production is £20 or £15. Now, why it goes down to £15 I'll discuss in a second, but just for the moment let's just take it as the cost is £20 if we produce 300 and £15 we produce 600. So the total production costs will be those two figures multiplied. 300 by 20 is 6,000 and 600 times 15 is 9,000. Now if the selling price is, let's say, 30, then the profit margin is the red figure, which is 3,000 at 300 units produced and 9,000 at 600 produced. In other words, we doubled the production and we tripled the profit margin. Doubling the production triples the profit margin. It goes from 3,000 to 9,000, whereas production only went from 300 to 600. How can that be? Well, economies of scale come about because of economies of size. So as a business expands, it'll find it cheaper to produce. It'll have, first of all, technical economies. It may buy in specialist machines. It may have machines customized to do its particular tasks. It may introduce robotics. It'll have a more specialized research and development team, not just looking at the design of the product, making it more attractive in the marketplace, but perhaps looking at the production process also. It'll have specialist workers with specialist knowledge of the market, specialist marketing personnel, specialist financial people, all of whom can start to reduce costs. It could also negotiate, because it's bigger, the business is growing bigger, it can negotiate better discounts on its purchases. It'll get loans easier from the bank and at cheaper rates because it's big and reputable. So there are many aspects of a business. You can look these up online. There are many points which contribute to economies of scale. But there are many aspects to the business which will lead to a reduction in unit costs. So as businesses expand, their costs may fall, and that may lead to businesses growing. It's also the case, of course, businesses can get too big. After a certain point, the business becomes too big, it becomes bureaucratic, it needs extra managers, there's a loss of control over the business, communications channels become complicated, the workers don't identify with the business. There are many issues that can creep in when the business gets too big. So when we consider economies of scale, we also need to consider possible diseconomies of scale. So it suggests that there must be an ideal size for businesses where economies of scale are maximized and just before diseconomies of scale set in. This is the topic of a separate video, and I suggest you look at that. Now, economies of scale, well, internal and external economies of scale. So let's look at the internal ones. These are concerned with how the organization can lower its costs per unit in order to be more profitable and gain market share. So how it can lower its unit costs. There are 5 main types of internal economies of scale an organization can consider. Bulk buying economies, as I said earlier on. The more it buys, the better its discounts. Technical economies, more specialized machinery, more customized machinery. Financial economies, able to handle its accounts more effectively, being able to handle its debtors and creditors, being able to borrow from the bank more efficiently and at cheaper rates. Marketing economies, better presence in the market. The product is more widely known because the business is big, so it's better able to brand its product. Managerial economies, a manager may be able to supervise a bigger department because it has the department has better communications channels and it's better structured, so there might be efficiency gains in management. managers are able to look after bigger departments, have a wider span of control. There can also be external economies. Occur when an organisation receives the benefits from reduced unit costs as a result of the industry growing. Now, these are outside of the business. These are advantages that are outside of the business. And there are three types of external economies of scale that need to be considered. First of all, it may be that the area is improving where the business is located, so there's better transportation and communications. That's a possibility, so that the distribution costs are falling and thus the unit cost of the product is falling. Industries sometimes influence the type of education in the area. For example, if it's a mining area, then the local colleges may offer mining courses for students. If the industry is shipbuilding, then the local colleges may offer shipbuilding courses or engineering courses that relate to shipbuilding. So there's a tooling up within the area to meet the requirements of the industry. And there's also support from other industries. It's not just an industry growing in an area because the area is growing. The area may be growing because lots of other industries are coming in. But that's a good thing, because now there's a workforce that are work-orientated, a more professional environment where industry is developing and the labour force is developing with it. There are skills to be shared, and there's a subsidiary market perhaps in components that springs up. There may be suppliers and component suppliers that feed into the main industries who also can supply other industries. So the whole area is improving, and that would be an external economy of scale. Now let's look at this idea of efficiency and effectiveness. These are two methods used to evaluate whether a strategy is efficient and effective. First of all, let's look at efficiency. This is concerned with optimizing the business resources to gain maximum returns on investment. So efficiency is optimizing resources, the business resources, to get the maximum returns. This either minimizes inputs for a given level of output or maximizes output for a given level of inputs. So either it maximizes output for a given level of input, or it minimizes inputs for a given level of output. Factors that need to be considered when it comes to applying efficiency. Waste minimization for a given output. Minimize the waste. That would lead to efficiency. Try to match production with demand so that stocks are not held. Minimize stock holding, because stock holding is not productive. It's not doing anything. It's money tied into stock. Sometimes companies have to hold a certain amount of stock for contingencies or emergencies, but don't overstock. Ways of increasing productivity and improving time management. There should always be the search for increasing productivity and improving time management. That would lead to efficiency. The quality of the product must be maintained, however. It's essential that efficiency drives do not eat into the quality of the product. The quality of the product must be maintained. Now the effectiveness idea. Well, stakeholders' needs should be met. That's the first point. The stakeholder ranges from the shareholders to the workers, to the management, to the suppliers, to the distributors. So all of the people who are involved in the business may be seen as a stakeholder. And the needs of the stakeholders should be met. Resources should be efficiently allocated to satisfy stakeholder needs. So resources should be efficiently used to meet stakeholder needs. Effectiveness means achieving the set of objectives. So effectiveness is the ability of the business to meet the set of objectives. That's being effective. Now the objectives may include increasing output or sales. So meeting increasing output or sales means there is an effective plan, there's an effective management that's delivering the output or sales, the increase in output or sales. That's what we mean by effectiveness. Effectiveness is reducing costs, if that isn't the objective of the business. Or effectiveness is embracing innovation. Or producing a good quality product that enjoys a good reputation in the market. If the business does that, it's been effective, because perhaps that is one of the objectives of the business. Now there is an efficiency effective matrix. First of all, we'll just fill out ineffective and effective on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis inefficient and efficient. And the first box is an inefficient and ineffective. Well, if the business is both ineffective and inefficient, it's likely to fail. That's not going to be in business for a long time. It's ineffective and inefficient. If it's ineffective and efficient, an efficient business that is not effective in meeting its objectives, it will decline. It's ineffective. It's not meeting its objectives. It's not effective. It's efficient, but it's not meeting its objectives. It's efficient in doing many things, but it's not meeting the objectives that are required, that are set. If it's effective and inefficient, then some of its objectives may survive, but it will have high costs. So it may survive for some time, but if there's more efficient competition in the market, it will suffer. It's inefficient, so it may survive, but it'll be under pressure continuously. It's meeting its objectives, but it's not efficiently doing so. The best possible outcome is, of course, when it's effective and efficient. This will succeed and grow. That business will succeed and grow. Now, in an ineffective business, well, the company is ineffective if it's not achieving its objectives. It may need to reconsider its strategy. Effectiveness is a measure of the ability of the business to achieve its strategic goals. That's what we mean by effectiveness. Effective but inefficient, well, in this case the business objective and goals are achieved, but resources are underutilized. It's inefficient. It's not using its resources efficiently. The outcomes could have been achieved with greater economy and use of resources. Now, effective and efficient. In this case, the business meets its objectives and it's cost effective in producing the goods. Higher performing companies are efficient and effective in their aims. So higher performing businesses meet their objectives efficiently. They are effective and efficient. These companies have a clear strategy. They have a good set of achievable goals and objectives. They optimize their use of resources. Now, overall management considerations. Well, first of all, what is the required level of output? The appropriate technology needed to produce the output. So the management must look at what is the required level of output, what's the technology that it needs, what resources has it got available, what distribution and logistics are needed. Can it distribute by lorry or by van or by rail, or does it need to use air transport, or does it need warehousing? Does it need warehousing in different parts of the country or in different countries? So it needs to work that out. It needs to have a monitoring and control system to ensure that the targets are met. It must continuously look at its own internal systems and monitor those systems to ensure that they're meeting the required targets. So measuring and performance is an ongoing activity. It's not a one-off. It should be factored into the routines of the business. It requires effective monitoring, and there must be some sort of benchmarking to say when it's falling short of the set targets and at what point does the shortfall trigger intervention and action on the part of management. So that's all we need to say about measuring performance. There are quite a few ideas in here, and many of them are the subject matter of separate videos. For example, economies and diseconomies of scale. So I suggest you look at those and do some general reading in the area also. That's all we're going to do for the moment, so thank you for watching.